Okay, so again, this is chapter 14.3, factoring trinomials where a is greater than 1, the trial and error method. So the trial and error method is pretty much a educated guess and check method. And what we're doing here is we're given a trinomial. So in this example, we're given the trinomial 2x squared plus 7x plus 6. And we know that the first term, this 2x squared, is going to have factors of 2. And that last term, 6, is going to have factors of 6. So when we're doing our guess and check method, we're always going to set up our problem like this, where we have our parentheses and we have a space before our x values, and then we have a space at the end. So it's the factors in this case of 2 that are going here in front of x, and then the factors of 6 that are going to go here after x. Okay. So when we're working through these problems, we're going to first form tables of all the factors of our a value and all the factors of our c value. And that's what that's saying here in this trial and error method step by step. So it's telling us that we always first check if there's a GCF because we want to try to make our problems smaller and easier to work with. Then we list out all the positive and negative factors of A and C. And then we test each and every combination until we get our answer. Okay, so guess and check method, the trial and error method. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at some examples here. Number 1, we have 10x squared plus 11x plus 1. Our first step is to see if we have a GCF. Does number 1 have a GCF? Yes or no? No, we don't, because if we look at our first numbers here, so our A, B, and C number, there's not a number that we can divide into 10, 11, and 1. Besides the number 1, but we don't factor out a GCF of 1 because that doesn't change our problem. Okay, so this is our A, B, and C. So now what we're going to do is we're going to find all the factors that will multiply to 10. That's our A value. So A is equal to 10. We need all of our factors that will give us 10. So for example, 1 times 10 will give us 10. Or we could do the negatives. Negative 1 times negative 10 will give us positive 10. Any other factors? 2 times 5. There's one more. Good. Negative 2 times negative 5. We always look at our positive ones and our negative ones. Okay, so now we're going to look at our C. So we have C is equal to 1. Okay, there's only going to be 2 factors that will give us 1. What will be those 2 factors? 1 times 1 and negative 1 times negative 1. That will give us our positive 1. So what we're going to do with all these numbers is we're going to create our parentheses, our factors with each of these terms. So remember, we are writing this as, let me rewrite this over here, as our A values and then our C values. Okay. So for the first one, we have, let's see, we have 1A, right? Because we're looking at this first one right here. I don't know why I wrote A. 1x. We have 1x plus 1, right? Because we took 1 from the A's and 1 from the C's. So we're looking at these ones right here first. And then we have 10x plus 1. Okay? So that's going to be our first guess. To determine if this guess is correct, we're going to have to FOIL out these 2 parentheses. Okay, so remember when we FOIL, we distribute that first term, and then we distribute that second term. Okay, So distributing 1x times 10x gives us 10x squared. 1x times 1 gives us x. 1 times 10x gives us 10x. And 1 times 1 gives us 1. When we FOIL, we always have our middle terms as like terms, so we can combine them. So what's x plus 10x? 11x. So we have 10x squared plus 11x plus 1. Does that match our answer? Yes, so we got lucky. Our first one we chose worked out. So that means our answer to this problem is what we got right here. This x plus 1, parentheses, 10x plus 1. So I'm just going to rewrite that so I can circle it. Okay. If this one did not work, we would have to go down the list. So then instead of doing 1 and 10 from our list A, we would do -1 and -10. And we would still continue using that 1, 1 on the C side. Okay, so that means this technically has 8 things that we would have to check. 8 parentheses that we'd have to check till we found our correct answer. And again, this is called the trial and error methods, guess and check. Yes.
I have a question. The homework, when you get a minute.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get through these ones, and then we'll have time at the end for the homework. We'll have plenty of time. Okay, any questions on number 1? Okay. Number 2. So before we start working on number 2, what do we notice? It's out of order. How would we write this in the correct order?
8y squared minus 13y.
So plus 13y, because that 13y is positive, and then minus 6. Perfect. So now this is in the correct order. Is there a GCF that we can take from 8, 13, and -6? Nope. So we are just going to do all our factors of A and then all our factors of C. So we have A is equal to 8. So what would be my factors of 8? What would be some factors of 8? 2 and 4. Good. That gives me 8. What else? 1 and 8. There's 2 more because we do our positives and our negatives. Good. So -2 and -4 and -1 and -8, because that will all give us positive 8 when we multiply. Okay. What about for our C value? What are the factors of 6? So we have 1 and 6, -1 and -6. What else? 2 and 3, and what's the last one? -2, -3. Okay, so in this one we have a lot more cases that we have to go through. Yes?
Why wouldn't we do -6?
Oh, that is correct. Thank you. I didn't see that. Yes, that's right. It's -6. That means I have to change up my factors here, right? Only one of them can be negative at a time. All right? So my first factor, -1 and 6, and then 1 and -6, and then -2 and +3, +2 and -3. Perfect. Thank you. So, yeah, that's a common mistake can happen. Make sure we're paying attention to our signs. But again, we still have lots of options here that we're going to have to go through. So part of this guess and check method is just going through every single option here. So I'm just going to go through and start with the first ones here. So I have 2y minus 1. So I take 1 from my A value and 1 from my C value. And then 4y plus 6. So again, I'm taking one of these from here, and the other one's going to the next parentheses because those are my A values. And then my C values One goes to one parenthesis, the other goes to the other parenthesis. And now in order to see if this is the correct answer, we're going to have to do what method? The FOIL method. Good. Okay. So that means I'm going to distribute that 2y first. So 2y times 4y is 8y squared. So far, so good. 2y times 6 is going to give us a 12y. Negative 1 times 4y is a negative 4y. And negative 1 times 6 is negative 6. Okay? I always combine my middle terms. So what's 12y minus 4y? So I have 8y squared plus 8y minus 6. Is this the same as my original problem? No, so it's not the same as my original problem. It's very close, right? But not quite there. So that means this right here that we did would not be an answer choice. Okay? So now we would have to go through and do this again, but use this option now. So we're going to stick with this 2 and the 4, but now we're going to move down to a 1 and a negative 6. And we're going to just do this step over again until we get the correct answer. Okay. So for that one, we would have, again, that 2y, and now we have plus 1, and then 4y minus 6. So the only thing we did was change the signs of the c value because we're checking the next factor in that table. So we already checked negative 1 and 6. Now we're checking 1 and negative 6. And again, we use the FOIL method. So we have 8y squared minus 12y plus 4y minus 6. And that's us doing the FOIL method. Combining those middle terms, we have 8y squared minus 8y minus 6. So what's the only thing that happened between our first guess and our second guess?
The center value just went from positive to negative.
Good, that center value just went from positive to negative, and we don't need an 8 at all. So that tells me right away that, okay, maybe we shouldn't be using any of these multiples of negative 6 that has that negative 1 and positive 6, or that positive 1 and negative 6. Okay, so we're going to, again, try the same thing now. We're still using the same a values. So first of all, so this one is not an answer. Okay, using our same a values of 2 and 4, now we're checking our next one on our C table of that negative 2 and positive 3. Okay, so we have the points, or sorry, we now have the parentheses 2y minus 2 and 4y plus 3. Again, I am using the same 2 and 4 in front of my y's, but now I am changing the last parts of the parentheses to a negative 2 and a positive 3. And again, I'm going to use that FOIL method to see if I am getting close to my original problem. So using the FOIL method, I get 8y squared plus 6y minus 8y minus 6. Combining those like terms, I get a negative 2y in the middle. Does that match our original problem? Okay. So as we're going through all of our chart on the C's, what do you think is going to happen if I just switched out a negative 2 and a positive 3 to a positive 2 and a negative 3? Do you think we're going to get a 13? No, so that tells me that instead of changing up my C's, maybe my A values need to be changed up. So instead of using 2 and 4, let's try 1 and 8. Okay, so now we're trying 1 and 8. And do you guys want to stick with the 2 and 3, or do you want to move to the 1 and 6? Because technically what we should do is go through each one again. But does anyone have any intuition or guess of what would work? We could just use the same one we just did, so that -2 and 3. So we're using a 1 and an 8, and a -2 and a +3. So we have y minus 2 and 8y plus 3. Okay, because we know this one did not work. So using that FOIL method again, we have 8y squared. Y times 3 is 3y. -2 times 8y is -16y. -2 and 3 is -6. So now when we put this together, we have 8y squared minus 13y minus 6. Is this our original problem? No. What is different about this one and our original? The negative. So what do you think we need to change up here? Because we don't want this to be negative. We want it to be positive.
Switch to the -1, -8.
So
We try a new one. I apologize.
no, we are still trying the +1 and 8. So that would be one check. It's okay. Now let's change up a -1 and -8. However, when we were going through these examples on this side right here, and our middle number changed signs, what were we changing on this side? The A's or the C's? The C's. So maybe we should change up the C value in here. So instead of a -2 and a +3, what do you think we should put in?
+2, -3.
Good. Let's change the sign. So a +2 and a -3. So we have y plus 2 and 8y minus 3. So when we FOIL this, based off our intuition, based off this guess and check, this should give us the correct answer. So we get 8y squared minus 3y plus 16y minus 6. Now when we add those middle terms, we get that positive 13y, which means our answer is this y plus 2 and 8y minus 3. And this is typically how this guess and check method works out. You are going to have multiple things that you're checking. It's not going to be as nice as number 1 where we got it on the first try, more often than not. Okay. Again, this is just a method that I'm showing you how to factor a trinomial. I will not on a test say use the trial and error method. I will just say factor, and you will choose which method is easiest. Okay. Okay, and for this one, we're just doing 3 and 4. We're not doing that 5 and 6. Okay. So on these last two problems here, on 3 and 4, on number 3, is there a GCF that we can take out?
10x.
Perfect, 10x. So we have a GCF of 10x, and if I take out that 10x, I'm left with 40 divided by 10 is 4. X cubed divided by x is x squared, so that's my first term. Minus 104, well actually 104 is not divisible by 10, so it can't be 10x. What would be our GCF? It would have to be 2x, yep. That's because if we divide 104 by 10, we would get 10.4, and we don't want a decimal. We want a whole number. So 2x. Okay, so 20x squared would be our first term. 104 divided by 2 would give us 52x. And then that 10x divided by 2x would give us 5. Okay. Remember in the beginning with that GCF, we ignore it and we're only paying attention to what is on the inside here. So what is my A value in this case? 20, and what's my C value? 5. So I need to create a table with all my values of 20. So what numbers can multiply to 20? 10 and 2, 1 times 20. 5 and 4. And then technically we have 3 more.
Negatives.
The negatives. So negative 10 and negative 2, negative 1 and negative 20, and negative 5 and negative 4. Because when we multiply two negatives, we get a positive. What about for our C value of 5? This one's only going to have 2 factors.
1 and 5, negative 1, negative 5.
Good. 1 and 5, because that gives us a positive 5. And negative 1 and negative 5, because that also gives us a positive 5. Okay, so remember this is that guess and check method, so it's whatever you guys want to start off with. So what should we start off with the A's? We can pick any of them. Do you want to just start at the top of our chart, or does anyone want to pick a number out of here? 5 times 4. Okay, let's try 5 times 4, and then which one do we want to try out of the C's? Okay, we'll do negative 1, negative 5. So let's check those ones, and let's see how close we get. So we have 5x minus 1 and 4x minus 5. Okay, that's taking the A values of 5 and 4 and the C values of negative 1, negative 5. So if I FOIL this out, let's see how close we got. So this is 20x squared minus 25x minus 4x plus 5. Okay. Right away, we see these middle terms. Is that middle term going to give us a negative 52x? Yes or no? No. So that tells us that one of our factors is not quite right. Okay, so that this is not going to give us an answer. So instead of trying 5 and 4, what other A value can we try for the factors? Yeah, remember there's no correct answer. Let's try 10 and 2, and we'll stick with the negative 1 and negative 5. Okay, so now we have 10x minus 1 and 2x minus 5. So the only thing we changed here was instead of plugging in the 5 and the 4 for our A values, we're plugging in a 10 and a 2. So let's see after we FOIL it what we get. So 20x squared. So we already know that our A and C values are going to be good. We're just checking that middle value of B. So 10x times 2x gave us 20x squared. 10x times negative 5 is negative 50x. Negative 1 times 2x is negative 2x. Negative 1 times negative 5 is positive 5. If I look at my middle terms, is that going to give me a negative 52x?
Yes.
Yes, so what does that tell you about this factor here? That's correct. That's our answer. So our answer for this one is that 10x minus 1 and that 2x minus 5. Okay, and then the last one we're going to do for these notes is number 4. So on number 4, what do we notice about this problem?
Starts with a negative.
Okay, we notice it starts with a negative. Good. So that tells us right away that we could take out a GCF. And that also we have two variables here. We have x and we have y. Okay? Remember when we have those two variables, what are we going to do with the y and y squared in the beginning?
Forget about it for now.
We're going to ignore them. Good. So I am going to ignore this y squared. So for now, we're just dealing with negative 45x squared minus 3x plus 18. They're going to come back at the end, but for now, we're ignoring them. Okay, now we need to find a GCF. We know we're going to take out a negative, but is there any other numbers that we could take out of 45, 3, and 18? 3. So we're going to take out a negative 3 from this problem. So negative 45 divided by negative 3 is 15. So we have 15x squared plus x minus 6. So that means as of now, we are just looking at this part when we are writing out our factors of A and C. So looking at our factors of A, what are the factors of 15? 1 and 15, good. 3 and 5. And then what are the other two? Good, our negatives. Okay, what about our factors of negative 6? 1 and negative 6, and then we could also flip that saying negative 1 and positive 6. And then what are the last two? Good, so negative 3 and 2, and then a positive 3 and negative 2. Right, because that will all give us 6, or that negative 6. Okay, so what do you guys want to start off with when forming our first guess? Remember, it doesn't matter. This is a guess. You know just as much as I do. So if you were looking at this, what would you make your first A values and your first C values? So I hear 1 and negative 6, and then do you want to just start with the 1 and 15? And just see where that leads us. So that gives us x plus 1 and 15x minus 6. Right? Because we give our A value to each of the parentheses and we give our C value to each of the parentheses. So if I FOIL this out, I get 15x squared minus 6x plus 15x minus 6. Remember, in these cases, we're only paying attention to that middle part. So will this middle part give us a positive x? No. So we get negative 6x plus 15x, which is not going to give us a positive x. So we know right away that this is not a good pair to use. Any guesses what we could try next? Do we want to choose a different A value or choose a different C value? Okay, A value. So what do you want to try? 3 and 5. Let's go down the list. So now 3 and 5, and we're still using that same C value. Okay, so we have now 3x plus 1 and 5x minus 6. So foiling this out, I know my A value and my C value are always going to work. So I have that 15x squared minus 18x, because 3x times negative 6, plus 5x minus 6. Is negative 18x plus 5x going to give me a positive 1? So it's not going to give us that positive 1. So now let's, instead of changing our a value, because we've already changed that twice, let's keep our a value but change our c value. So again, we're going to keep that 3 and 5, and then instead of using a 1 and a 6, do you guys want to use a negative 3 and a positive 2, or a positive 3 and a negative 2? Okay, so let's try these ones. Okay, so we have 3x plus 3. Again, that did not work. And then we have 5x minus 2. So foiling this out, we get 15x squared minus 6x, okay, plus 15x minus 6. Is this going to give us a positive x in the middle? Okay, so now let's go ahead and try to switch up our c values where we have a negative 3 and a positive 2. And again, this is not a method I'm going to test over. This is just a way, if you think this is easier, you're more than welcome to do this way on the exam. Okay, so we're not changing up our a values, so we still have 3x. But now we're going to have a minus 3 and 5x plus 2. Let's see how that changes when we FOIL it out. So we have 15x squared plus 6x minus 15x minus 6. Oops. Will that give us a positive x? No. So based on everything we just did, anyone have any guesses of what we should try next? Let's go ahead and keep the 3 and 5 from the a values. But do you think we would change your answer if we, for example, in this one, instead of putting negative 3 first, if we would have put a positive 2? Just switch these two terms. Would that give us a different answer? It would, right? Because we're multiplying by different numbers in that case. So let's try that. So we're trying 3x plus 2 and 5x minus 3. Okay? All I did was take these two c terms and I switched them into the different parentheses. Okay? So if I FOIL that out, I get 15x squared minus 9x plus 10x minus 6. Is this going to give us a positive x in the middle? Yes, so we finally got our positive x, meaning our answer here is this case. So if you're trying out all the cases, you're still not getting close to that middle number, try swapping the c values. So swapping them as in putting them in the different parentheses, because that's going to change the number that they're getting multiplied by when you FOIL. And we noticed on the left side that we were just getting very large numbers by keeping it in that order.